Guys, a while ago, a year ago, a month ago, I don't remember ago, I did the one board challenge. I took a single 8-foot 2x4 and I made an end table. And after that, you guys said that I had cheated. And to be fair, I got kind of cocky during the video. I went, You go, But you guys, nonetheless, said that I cheated. You said that I used glue, and I used screws, and I used nails, so it wasn't a one-board challenge. That's what we're doing today. So I'm going to redeem myself. It's been a little while. I had to figure out what to make, and to figure out how. But I think I've done it. So please join me as I learn how to do some new joinery that I have never done before. And let's get dusty. Alright, first things first, I need to rip this thing down. So I took it over the chop saw and I cut everything to all the lengths that I was going to need. But because it was thicker than what I was going to need, I basically wanted some 1x4s as I ripped it over on the table saw. And after ripping these down, they weren't exactly the same thickness, so I just went over to the planer and planed them all to the correct and same thickness. So now we're at the point of joinery, because I've never done this. I've always been very intimidated by this, but now I have to. And that's called doing hand-cut dovetails. Now, again, never, ever done this in my lifetime. I've watched one video on how to do it. We're going to do it. Now, am I going to say things that are the wrong terminology? More than likely. If that offends you, see you later. I'm going to give this a shot, tater tot. And as a woodworker, it's one of those things where I think I should know how to do it, especially if I want to up my skill. So, the first things I got to do is cut the big things. The tails, I think they're called. Might not be called tails. Don't know. I also don't have a marking gauge and all the cool stuff that that guy had, so we're gonna wing nut it here. So I need to know my thickness of my material so I can go down, and that'll give me. I don't know why I'm trying to explain this because I don't really know what I'm doing. So I'm going to just take one of my boards and I plane them all to the same thickness, and I'm gonna mark all the way around the thickness on my boards here, so I know for cutting this part. Let me try to explain to you what I got going on here. So I'm using this trim board as basically my half pins. I'm using that thickness to mark my half pins on the end grain board. And then I'm using a compass to try to decide how big my tails are actually going to be. So I'm going to set that and I'm actually going to walk it to make it so I can have two tails off of those half pins. Seem complex? It is, and I'm not making the best video on how to do it. If you want to learn how to do dovetails, I would really recommend watching someone else's video, somebody who has a lot more experience, because this was very complex to do. But as you can see, is I grab my little square here and I'm just running those lines a little more square and a little more visible. Now this board, I actually cut a 10-degree miter on the chop saw, and I'm using that to mark out my angle that my tails are going to be. Now I actually cut the angle on both sides of the board, so I'm able to just transfer it over this way instead of having to flip the board. Didn't really need to do that, but I did. But what you do to one side, I had to do the other side, so I flipped the board over to then transfer all of those same markings over to the other side. So when I'm cutting, I'll be able to look on the back and the front and try to make sure that I'm running my blade within the lines on both sides. Because you want to run that blade on the inside of the line, which is kind of the waist area. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to finish up and get a little more precise with a chisel and a file after you cut out all of the material. So I'm just using my saw, and again, going on the inside of the line. I'm trying to follow the inside and watch the back of the board as I'm cutting to make sure that I'm cutting as perpendicular as I can. Then I'm going through with the coping saw after the majority of it's been cut through, and I'm actually then removing the majority of that material with the coping saw. The blade being a lot thinner, it's a lot easier to maneuver that blade inside. Again, though, I'm not going to get it all here. What I'm doing is just trying to get the majority so I can go back through later on with the chisel and the file and kind of fine-tune exactly what I'm trying to do. And here is the first look at my rough first ever dovetails. Not too bad, but of course we're going to bring it over and we're going to try to fine-tooth it with this chisel here. Fine-tooth, fine it, define it, perfect it. Whatever I'm trying to say, we're going to use the chisel to try to get into that line a little bit easier. Camera work was not the greatest here. Couldn't really figure out a good way to make it easy for you guys to see. But yeah, using that chisel, I'm just trying to dial this in a little bit more. I want you guys to know, I'm not going to fake this. I'm really going to do this, and I'm really going to try hard.
I also don't have a wood vise, I just have a metal vise, which kind of means I'm dinging up my wood, which means I'm going to do a lot of sanding later on to fix. So secretively, I have always wanted to be able to do dovetails. I've always admired everyone's work who's been able to do them, and I've always been really intimidated by how hard they look to do. And I can confirm right now they are hard to do. And I've only done I'm only finishing up the tails, and I've been going at it for probably close to an hour. For the inexperienced, they are very difficult. Again, I don't have the right stuff, and I know that. I realize that way I think anything's easier, but I think these things are still very difficult to do, especially if you're trying to do them because your first time you're going to be posting on the internet. But what I'm saying is that I'm actually pretty excited about doing this. Again, it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. I really wanted to get that skill and test myself like that, and that's what I'm doing big time with this. Alright, and now it's time to cut the pins. It's only been about an hour, and we're going to give this a shot. I just traced out the one. I don't know how these things are supposed to technically be done. So what I did is I just went through and I'm just labeling each one, and then those ones will coincide with each other, because I don't think these are going to be a unisex type thing where I can just throw them into either one. Yeah, you have no idea how bad that I wanted to use, I don't know, the bandsaw or something so far, instead of cutting everything by hand, but here we are. Fun fact, this isn't even the only kind of joinery I'm doing for the first time in this video. I have to do some other joinery later on that I've never done either. So now I'm going to cut these out, cut these tails out. Yeah. Ta-da!
So I believe these are the pins. Now these were a lot easier to dial in with the file and chisel because they were so much wider with having that material actually removed.
So after about 2 hours, I'm ready to try to put this thing together for the first time. Now, I realized before I even get started trying to put it together is that I will probably have to make modifications and sand and file a little bit more off. That's kind of expected. So let's see if my first ever hand cut dovetails are remotely working. I just want to get in the ballpark. I want to be playing the right sport here. I mean, it's not terrible. That's my first ever dovetail. It's not terrible. There's a gap there. It could be better. Some sanding and a little more pounding is going to help out, but I don't know if I want to pound this all together now. Yeah, let's just do that because I should be able to pound it apart. Of course, this is pine, so I might blow it apart when I pull it apart. Well, we'll just make the mistakes together, my friends. So D goes to D's nuts. Oh, look at that. That is not what you want right there. That's terrible. Oh, man. Wait a minute here. Oh, ha. That's because that was the wrong side, silly John. Oh, tricks are for kids. Alright, let's try this. Dang, look at that. Oh, there is a bunch of gaps there. Dang. In the words of my kids, let's go. This is actually working. Now, I think I just screwed up. So I gotta get this one in there too. That flipping cracked it, but it worked. I cracked it. Dang it. I didn't know that's that until after I got excited. So that one's going to have to get filed down a little bit more. Realistically, have there been better dovetails in America? Yes. Have I ever made better dovetails? Never. Just kind of bummed that I did have a bit of crackage right there, but cool. It looks decent enough. I don't think there's a whole lot more that I'm going to be like needing to do. I think it fit decent enough. This one's going to need some love though. But cool. Alright, I'm going to pull it apart and then we got to work on the next new thing.
I ran this groove through all of these pieces so that the bottom will slide in there. and not be able to move around too much. And as you can see here, I'm just cutting and doing some other fun stuff.
So the first thing I need to do now, because I'm working on that bottom, the bottom of the serving tray, and if you watch the other one board challenge, you'll know that what it is, I just ripped a bunch of boards and glued them to make a flat panel. But because I can't use glue anymore, we're going to try to tongue and groove these things. And I've never done that before, obviously, but we'll get it. So I'm going to take these 2x4s right here, and I'm going to rip off this round edge first. And then I'm going to cut 1/2 inch slats, and then we'll attempt to make a tongue and groove out of that. I cut hopefully extra, because I don't know how many I need. Okay, so using a combination of a few things. First things first is the slats that I made were actually too wide. So I had to go through and actually run it through the planer to get it down to the perfect thickness. Not a big dealio. Now, like I said, tongue and groove. Now, I did the tongue and groove the combination of the router and the table saw. And this is kind of what I came up with. That's not the right one. This is what I came up with right here. So as you can see, I use a table saw to make the slot down through the side here. And then I just took the router and I actually routed both sides to make this slot right here. So now you can see they just slide right on in like so and lock in that way. So that's going to be how I keep the bottom together.
To cut out the handle grip area, I just use a Forstner bit and I drilled a couple of nice big holes in there. And then a straight edge to connect those two holes. And then using a jigsaw, I just cut out that inside all the extra material. And once that was out, I just went through and to round over everything, I used a 1/4 inch round over bit on my hand router and just rounded over both sides, the inside and outside of the tray.
But I got this thing semi-sanded. Let's try to put her together and see how she actually looks. What I did was, since I sanded off the letters on there, I actually wrote the letters on the dovetails themselves, which will tell me which ones these line up with. But now you're probably thinking to yourself, cool, now it's going to fall apart because there's nothing holding it together because your dovetails are crappy. And I'm going to be honest with you, you're half right. But hold the phone. I have an idea. Alright, so I got the thing in clamps. Now, there is no glue on there. I just want everything to be held tight because what we're going to use to continuously hold it tight is I'm going to drill a hole in each of the corners and I'm going to put a 1/4 inch dowel. Now, if you haven't seen the other one board challenge video, then you're probably thinking, you cannot just put a dowel in there. That is illegal. Different material, can't do it. Now, I'll tell you this. There's also the option of, I do have the wooden lathe over there. I could lathe me up, mill me up some 1/4 inch dowel out of the 2x4. Or I could do what I'm going to do. Now, if you haven't seen the other one board challenge, you won't know. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. So I cut some of this, that 2x4 to just over 1/4 inch square stock. Okay, and now here I drilled a 1/4 inch hole in this metal. Watch this. Now we have a 1/4 inch dowel. Alright guys, one board challenge, number 2, complete. This time, no fasteners, no glue, straight up just a 2x4. This serving tray, which is 13 inches by 17 inches, and this thing isn't coming together. I want to throw it really hard and try to break it. Again, this was my first attempt at these dovetails, and check these bad boys out. Are they perfect? No. Is there a crack right there? Yes. Does that bother me? Absolutely. But, I mean, there are the gaps in the dovetails. Had I been able to use wood glue and some sawdust, I could have filled those and it would have looked much better. But I'm still really pleased with how it turned out. It's going to be a functional serving tray. So this is all I have left of that 8-foot 2x4. I mean, there's about a foot chunk there and then some scrap cut-offs, nothing crazy. It's actually a lot more than I had the last time I did this challenge, but you know. But anyway, these challenges are always a lot of fun, and this one did take me 6 hours. Like, it is 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve. I've been out in the shop all day building this beautiful masterpiece. Now, I am going to put some stain on this. I'm going to clear coat it and finish it. Now, you're not going to see it on this video because I don't want people telling me that I added stuff that wasn't just the 2x4 and so I failed the challenge. So the challenge is complete. We're done. We're over. I am, like I said, I'm going to finish this thing. And if you want to see it finish, it'll be on my Facebook and Instagram page. You guys can check it out there. If there's anything you guys think that I should do again, let me know. Challenge me again in the comments. If I cheated some way, somehow, some way, you guys can let me know. I'm sure you'll let me know if I cheated. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was fun. I'll see you guys on the next video.